Ever wondered why in-laws were invented? Welcome to Surviving the In-Laws, a comedic guide. Picture this. You're at yet another family gathering, cornered by your in-laws, and the only thing standing between you and freedom is a minefield of awkward conversations and unsolicited advice. Don't worry, we've all been there. But what if I told you there's a way to navigate this perilous terrain without losing your sanity? Intrigued? You should be. Today we're going to arm you with some tried and true tactics, all served with a side of humor. We'll teach you the art of selective hearing, the benefits of developing a sudden passion for gardening, and how to become a culinary chameleon. We'll even show you how to turn nodding into an Olympic sport. And that's just the beginning, so buckle up folks, because we're about to dive into the world of in-law survival. First up on our survival guide, we've got the art of selective hearing and a sudden passion for gardening. Now let's dive into the art of selective hearing. Think of it as your personal invisible shield. It's like that superpower you always wanted as a kid, but instead of flying or super strength, you get to skillfully ignore any backhanded compliments or unsolicited advice. It's a delicate dance of smiling and nodding while mentally replaying your favorite TV show episodes. You're right there in the room, but in your head, you're on a beach in Hawaii or maybe in a galaxy far, far away. And no, you didn't hear that comment about how you're not folding the laundry correctly. You were too busy watching imaginary sunsets or battling stormtroopers. But what happens when the in-laws get a little too close for comfort? Well, that's where our second survival tip comes in: gardening. Yes, you heard it right, gardening. Even if you've never touched a spade in your life, when your in-laws come to visit, you're going to discover an undying love for horticulture. It's kind of like method acting, you know? You're no longer John or Jane Doe, you're the enthusiastic gardener next door. The beauty of gardening is that it gives you an excuse to spend hours outside, away from any awkward conversations. Plus, the sound of pruning shears is surprisingly effective at drowning out any critique. You're not avoiding your in-laws, you're just bonding with nature. And the best part, it's a win-win. You get some peace and quiet, and your garden gets a much-needed makeover. And who knows, you might even develop a genuine love for gardening. Stranger things have happened. So remember, the next time your in-laws visit, you'll be too busy pruning roses to hear any unsolicited advice. And if they do catch you off guard with a snide comment or two, just smile, nod, and mentally transport yourself to your favorite fictional universe. You've got this. Moving on to our next set of survival tactics: becoming a culinary chameleon, mastering the nod, and practicing selective memory. Now brace yourselves for the culinary chameleon technique. This one requires you to praise your in-laws' cooking, even if it tastes like the sole of a boot. Why? Because in the realm of in-laws, their special meatloaf is the culinary equivalent of a Michelin-starred meal. So, despite your taste buds staging a mutiny, remember, survival instinct reigns supreme. If it means suffering through a dinner that tastes like cardboard, so be it. Just remember to keep the antacids handy. Next up, the art of the nod. This one's a real workout, folks. It's like the Olympics, but for your neck. Nod when they talk politics, nod when they give parenting advice, nod when they reminisce about the good old days. It's a universal sign of agreement without actually having to agree with anything. And let's face it, it's a great way to zone out without looking rude. Just make sure to throw in an occasional or interesting for good measure. Lastly, we come to the selective memory tactic. This one's a gem, folks. Forgot to do something they asked? Oops, must have slipped your mind. The beauty of this technique is its versatility. It can be used to dodge tasks like reorganizing their basement, sitting through their timeshare presentation, or listening to their third retelling of Uncle Bob's trip to the Grand Canyon. Just remember, the key to selling this one is a sincere look of surprise and a heartfelt, "I completely forgot." So there you have it. Embrace your inner culinary chameleon, perfect the art of the nod, and hone your selective memory skills. Because remember, your taste buds might suffer, but at least you'll have a well-exercised neck and a conveniently forgetful mind. Our next trio of survival techniques involves birdwatching, emergency work calls, and laugh tracks in your head. First up, birdwatching. This hobby is about as exciting as watching paint dry, but that's precisely where its charm lies when you're trying to escape the in-laws. It's quiet, peaceful, and most importantly, it's usually done alone. So when your father-in-law launches into his third hour of war stories, or your mother-in-law insists on showing you the entire family photo album dating back to the Middle Ages, just remember that rare bird you've been dying to see, the elusive in-law avoidance finch, perhaps. Next on our survival guide, the emergency work call. We all know work and family should be kept separate, but desperate times call for desperate measures. Keep a friend on standby to call you with an urgent work crisis. Suddenly, your boring spreadsheet becomes a matter of national security, and you've got the perfect excuse to slip away. Just remember to keep your story straight. We wouldn't want you accidentally saving the world from a rogue PowerPoint presentation. Finally, we have the laugh tracks. Now this one's a personal favorite. Imagine a sitcom laugh track playing during every awkward moment. The in-laws' passive-aggressive comments, cue laughter. The not-so-subtle hints about grandchildren, cue even more laughter. It turns every cringeworthy comment into a scene from a comedy show. Trust us, it's a game-changer. Suddenly you're not at a tense family dinner. You're in the middle of a live filming of Friends, minus the cool New York apartment and the catchy theme song. So when things get tough, just remember that rare bird you've been dying to see, or that urgent work crisis you need to solve. And if all else fails, just hit play on that laugh track in your head. After all, nothing diffuses tension quite like a good belly laugh, even if it's only you laughing. Finally, we've got our last two survival tactics, the phrase, "that's interesting," and the comforting thought that this too shall pass. Now you might be thinking, what's so special about "that's interesting"? Well, my friends, "that's interesting" is the Swiss Army knife of phrases. It's non-committal and non-confrontational, perfect for those moments when an opinion is expected, but you'd rather not launch into a debate about whether aliens built the pyramids. Picture this. Your mother-in-law is sharing her theory about how the moon landing was faked. You could argue, delve into the scientific evidence and risk an evening of icy stares. Or you could simply say, "That's interesting," and change the subject to her famous meatloaf recipe. It's a phrase that lets you dodge conversational landmines with the grace of a ballerina. But remember, use it sparingly. If you start responding to every comment with, "That's interesting," they might start to suspect you're not as captivated by their stories as you appear. And here's our final piece of advice. Remember, it's temporary. Like a bad sitcom or a dentist appointment, the visit will eventually come to an end. You might feel like you're stuck in a time loop, but trust me, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Just like every episode of the Jon Stewart Daily Show, your in-law visit too has an expiration date. It's a comforting thought when you're on your 10th round of family slideshows or listening to your father-in-law's detailed account of his gallbladder surgery. So, hang in there. Keep your wits about you, and remember, humor is your best defense. After all, if you can't laugh at the absurdity of it all, you might find yourself volunteering for that basement reorganization project. In short, when dealing with in-laws, just remember to say, "That's interesting," and keep in mind, the visit will eventually end. Remember, when in doubt, just say "That's interesting," and keep in mind, the visit will eventually end. Well, we've made it through our survival guide. Let's do a quick recap before we send you off to brave the wild world of in-law relations. First, we talked about mastering the art of selective hearing. When in doubt, just smile, nod, and think about your favorite TV show. Then we moved on to developing a sudden passion for gardening. It's a great way to dodge those awkward chats, plus who doesn't love a little fresh air? Next, we explored the culinary chameleon technique. Remember, their special meatloaf is the best you've ever had. Nodding, the unsuspecting Olympic sport, is another key skill. It's all about the neck workout, folks. And let's not forget the selective memory technique. Oops, did you forget to do something, they asked? Must have slipped your mind. We also discussed the peace and solitude of birdwatching and the ever-useful emergency work call. And when things get really awkward, just imagine a sitcom laugh track playing in your head. Finally, we ended with, "That's interesting," your go-to phrase, and the comforting fact that every visit, like every episode of the Jon Stewart Daily Show, has an end. And remember, folks, it's all in good fun. Behind every joke, there's a little truth, just like behind every in-law visit, there's, well, another visit. Good luck.